All right. Welcome everyone to our online session today. Uh, and it's a, I guess, kickoff session. It's a pleasure to have each of you joining us from around the world. So we have lined up 5 sessions with 5 amazing speakers for our guests. We try to provide various topics for you this month. These sessions uh, will be about Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, Copilot Studio, which we hope uplift your skills and also you enjoy these sessions. So today we have Scott Roller with a uh, great topic and a great session. It's a model-driven Power Apps are cool. So we might be, curious why we need to use, model-driven apps instead of the Canvas app, and when and how we can use the model-driven app in our project. So uh, Scott is a solution architect, and uh, so before adding him to the stage, I'm going to introduce Microsoft Learn community and myself as well. So I'm Arash Aghajani. I'm a Microsoft MVP and technical architect from Vancouver, Canada, and I'm hosting today's session. And so I'm going to introduce a little about the Microsoft Learn community. The Microsoft Learn community offers various ways for learners to connect with peers and experts to enhance their expertise and achieve career goals. It includes the Microsoft Learn Hub for update and discussions, and learning rooms for direct engagement on specific topics. Access the community through the provided links for more information and to join. So bookmark aka.ms/Microsoft Learn community, and as well as the aka.ms/learning rooms to get the list of the learning rooms that you can join to the Microsoft Learn community. So Power Platform Learner to Leaders is one of Microsoft Learn learning rooms, which has more than 2,000 members. We are sharing the latest information about the Power Platform in our learning room, and also conduct this series of sessions for Power Platform enthusiasts. So if you are not a member of our tech community, join us through this link, aka.ms/ppLTL. So one more things here is the code of conduct of our session. So Microsoft aims to empower everyone globally through knowledge sharing and events, ensuring a respectful and inclusive environment for all. Harassment or degrading behavior is not tolerated, and everyone is responsible for upholding these standards. The code of conduct encourage awareness, friendliness, and respect, openness, understanding, and kindness. Okay, that's all for our community. And before we begin, a few important notes here. If you have any question during the presentation, feel free to type them in the chat box. We will have a dedicated Q&A session toward at the end, and this session is being recorded for those who couldn't join us live, and will be available shortly in Power Platform Learner to Leader YouTube channel. So without any delay, I will hand it over to you, Scott. Let me add you to the stage. Hello. You are muted, Scott.
There we go. That helps.
Okay.
Hi. Hello, everybody.
Awesome. Hello. Thank you for joining us today. So it's a pleasure to hosting you here in the Power Platform Learner to Leader. I'm interested actually to know more about the model-driven app as our attendees here. So can you please share your screen and start your presentation? I'm going to My presentation from the day. Okay, awesome.
All right, everybody ready?
Yeah,
All
go
right,
ahead.
let's do it. So, so I'm presenting on model-driven power apps today. Why they're cool, and hopefully I'll prove it to you. I think they're cool, and I think they're very easy and straightforward way to develop a nice, a power app out there that somebody can use for a specific solution that you might have. So I'm Scott Roller. I am a solution architect. I'm independent at the moment, and I'm working for my own LLC, which is 365 Thoughts. And my blog is the same, is 365thoughts.com. You can reach out to me on email at sroller@365thoughts.com. And on LinkedIn, I'm Scott J. Roller. And on Twitter, I'm at Gishsteel. So you can get a hold of me any of those ways. And I do put out content on those channels, and trying to put out even more than I have in the past. But, it's a little bit challenging at times. But glad to have everybody here today. And let's talk about model-driven power apps. Moving on. One of the first things I wanted to cover was maybe one of the reasons why we would use a model-driven power app just in the Power Platform and outside of Dynamics 365. So model-driven power apps have been around for years inside of Dynamics, and just recently in the last few years have been available to us, outside of the Dynamics first-party apps, and the ability to build an app inside of the Power Platform Maker on its own. So some of the advantages there are the reduced licensing cost. So we can have a per app license of $5 per user per month, and that allows us to access one app. If we upgrade to the premium license, which is $20 per user per month, now we can have access to unlimited apps that are out there. So if we have, 4 or more, basically, then we'd want that premium license. Anything under 4, then you could just have multiple per app licenses and save a little bit of money. But one of the things that we get then with Power Apps and just being in the Dataverse and being on the Microsoft Cloud is the ability to use the out-of-the-box entities that Microsoft has created for us that's a part of the Dataverse. So we have accounts, which is essentially company information. We have contacts, which is individual people information. And we're going to look at this a lot more in detail when I get into the demo part of this presentation. But and then we have the activities, which is like email and phone calls and appointments and things like that. There's a lot more of out-of-the-box entities. Those are the 3 I'm going to show today, and those are some of the most important ones, in my opinion, that we'd probably use in almost every application where we need to have companies, we need to have individuals, and we want to record and keep track of activities in a system. So I mentioned then the first-party apps that are a part of D365 or Dynamics, and those are kind of where Power Apps came from. But they're very powerful, and I work in them every day, and I'm a Dynamics consultant as well as a Power Platform consultant. So I love these first-party apps, but they're more expensive because Microsoft has gone out and done a lot of the development for us and done a lot of research and put a lot of time and effort into making sure that these processes fit, kind of a standard. And they've done a lot of work in, hey, what is like a standard sales process that somebody want to go through? What's a standard customer service or field service process? And so they put a lot of effort into that and give us a starting point. And obviously we can always customize that to a certain client or a company's needs. But, for sales, the marketing or the first party app can cost anywhere between $65 to $162 per user per month. So a lot more than that $5 or $20 per month fee that we saw for just a standard out-of-the-box Power App. And one of the things that we get with these first-party apps, though, in Dynamics, and one of the reasons you'd want to use them, is the processes that I mentioned before, but also the use of the restricted entities. So if we use just a Power App, which is where we're going to focus on today, and I think that's the kind of the exciting thing, we can inexpensively create an app that can be used for pretty much any application, but we don't get the use of the restricted entities, which is cases and goals and journeys and work orders, things that are involved with sales and customer service and field service and even marketing that's out there. They restrict those, and you have to buy the more expensive first party app to have access to those entities. And as I mentioned before, they're Microsoft built. They're usually built for applications like a predefined application like sales or customer service, marketing, and field service. And they have a lot of processes around them, and they are valuable. And if you have something like that you need, they are worthwhile. They're worth the extra money, because then you have to go out and try to recreate and build all that on your own. You just kind of get it natively, and then you can expand on that. All right. So let's move off of that. And let's talk about really why we're here today, which this is an older term, but I still like the term, which is why I still use it. But it's XRM. Really, it's anything relationship management. And that's what we're talking about today. That's what a out of the box Power App, in my opinion, kind of is. Or that's where I've gone, and in the solutions that I've built recently and through history, is it's usually a XRM type of solution. It's, we're relating something other than sales and customer service and those other things that Microsoft's already built for us. We're relating other things with each other. So some of the examples that I've built in the past year or so has been a truck driver history app. So we had a client that wanted to be able to, they're a over-the-road trucking company. So they are involved in the transportation industry. And they wanted to be able to track their truck driver information, the history, if they had any accidents, if they tested positive for any, drug violations, things like that. And so with that, they would make decisions on, do we want to keep this driver anymore? Do we want to basically fire them? And then also, there's a lot of turnover in that industry. So if somebody left and went to another company, they could keep track of that history and say, if they wanted to come back, well, would we want to rehire this person or not, based on their driver history? So there's a lot of safety information that was involved there. There was a lot of, like I said, history. We had a lot of activities involved with that. So that was kind of a cool app that I was able to build out for them. Another one was in the railroad maintenance industry, where there was a company that was involved with maintaining railroad crossings. They would go out and do the maintenance and the checkups, and they even did manufacturing of the systems that went into there. And so if you don't know, the federal government requires that railroad crossings are checked at least every month. And so they have a monthly, a quarterly, and an annual kind of maintenance process. Alongside also, if railroad crossings are damaged or vandalized or something like that, then they can get called out to do, in the middle type of maintenance to those railroad crossings. But they wanted an app that they could track their scheduling of when these maintenance sessions were due. And then once they're out there, how long, tracking how long they're out there, how much they spent, how much time they spent. And then each one of the different aspects that they were testing or keeping track of was important to gather, the tolerances and, how much lag time there was for the systems to come up, and were the flashers working correctly, and all that important stuff to make it safe for the railroad and for the cars that were going over these crossings. And then the last one I'll mention these are just examples to kind of give you an idea of where we're going. I am going to have a demo of a real simple one that I built here in a little bit. But the last one I wanted to focus on was this a company that created gunpowder, and they create gunpowder for a lot of large, ammunition type of companies. And, we could get political on that statement, but beyond that, they, each batch of gunpowder, I guess, according to them, is not guaranteed to have the same type of quality standards from batch to batch. So they would create a batch, and it would have certain, quality range of standards that they're looking for, but they would need to test it. They would take a certain sample out of it and basically fire weapons with that sample and see if the velocity and the pressures and everything were correct. And they were tracking all of that data in an app that we built. So in that, they're tracking the different history of the gunpowder samples, the firing sequences, just to make sure that everything was good before they sent it out, so that it was safe. It was the big safety concerns there, that if it was too powerful or basically not powerful enough, that they wanted to keep track of those qualities. So those are my examples of something I built recently, and I think those are kind of valuable to point out as to what's available with a system like this. So some of the other things and some of the reasons why I think that model-driven apps are cool and should be used quite a bit is that, you know, you can quickly design and deploy new apps. So these examples that I did above and the one that I'm going to show you, it may take a little while to kind of get your ideas down on, you know, paper and design a little bit, but it's not as much as something else where we're, you know, coding from scratch from, you know, a blank sheet of paper or a blank application. We have a lot of the basic design things that Microsoft gives us inside of Power Apps to allow us to get to there quickly. So we can quickly design and we can quickly deploy these apps after just a little bit of field creation and creating some of the views and forms and things like that. But it's pretty quick. So we're built on Dataverse, and I mentioned that before, but that's kind of the universal data structure that the Power Platform and also Dynamics is built on top of. We have access to those few out-of-the-box entities that I mentioned before, like accounts, contacts, and activities.
Sorry,
So,
Scott,
yeah.
interrupting you. So we are seeing only just the first slide. So you are in the first slide, or you?
Oh no.
No.
Nope. I went through a couple different slides already. Is it not? It's not changing.
I think it's stuck on the first slide. Your screen.
Okay.
Okay. This one.
Did it change now?
Yeah, it's a licensing costs slide, right?
Okay. Let me see if I can change how I'm sharing. All right. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
You see the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not the presentation. Okay, it's presentation. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so this is the first slide.
The first slide, right? The second one.
Slide?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe this is better. I'm sharing my whole screen. I was just sharing the PowerPoint before.
PowerPoint, right? Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I was talking about with the licensing cost. Just to kind of reiterate, since I was on the screen when I was talking, but nobody got to see it, I was talking about the $5 per user per month, and then the premium license of $20 per user per month, and then the use of the out-of-the-box entities of accounts, contacts, and activities. And then we had the first-party apps, which are a part of Dynamics 365, and the increased licensing costs there for the first-party apps, since Microsoft has done a lot of the work and research and things for us there. We'd also have the restricted entities that are available for the first-party apps, you know, things like cases and goals, journeys, and work orders. And then those pre-built Microsoft processes and use cases for the first-party apps are things like sales and customer service, marketing, and field service. And then I was moving on to this slide, which is the XRM slide, and I hope everybody can see it now. And that's where I was talking about the examples that I've built in the past of the truck driver history, the railroad maintenance, and the gunpowder quality. And then I was talking about how quickly and easily it is to build those apps and deploy them. And then I think when we came across the problem of my slides not showing correctly, I was talking about building out of the Dataverse and how Dynamics and the Power Platform is built on top of the Dataverse. It's really, you know, it's the database in the cloud that everything relates to. And that allows us to have access to those out of the box entities, things like accounts, contacts, and activities, among others. And then gives us the ability to create, custom entities. And those would be the custom entities that I will show you here in a few minutes, but also the things that the custom ones that I had to create for the truck driver history and the railroad maintenance and the gunpowder quality, things that are not a part of the standard Dataverse, but the safety tables that I created for truck driver history and the railroad maintenance tables that were tracking all the different pieces of the railroad crossings, those types of things I created from scratch. And Dataverse allows us to do that. And that's very powerful. And then kind of at the end, and this is another very powerful thing, is we can also create these relationships. So in each one of the examples I mentioned above, we have relationships from like maybe a truck driver to many different incidents that they may have that's in their history. We have many to many relationships. So maybe many railroad crossings to many maintenance incidents, and so we have many to many relationships there. So that's very powerful in the ability to have us relate data across the Dataverse from one table to another. And then kind of really the last thing, and the thing when I build XRM platforms, for lack of a better term, but that's the term I'm using right now. When I'm building these types of systems, I really try to stay in the low code, no code type of universe. I mean, there are almost always there's need for going to code, but I always try to stay inside the box when possible, because I think it is easiest to maintain, it's easiest to upgrade, and all those good things if we keep it inside of what Microsoft currently has, and they do a good job of making sure that if you're inside of no code, that things will upgrade and transfer properly, especially if we're using several different environments. If we have a dev and a test and a prod environment, then moving things with solutions works a lot better that way as well. So with the no code, I like using a lot of business rules, which takes the place of some simple JavaScripting. There's still a need for JavaScript, but I try to do as much with business rules as possible. And then Power Automate, which is another part of the Power Platform, is very powerful in building workflows. And we can trigger events with Power Automate, and then Power Automate can do, that's a whole nother session in itself, but it can send out emails, and it can change values in records, and it can go out and ping other databases and make things happen. So there's the kind of the sky's the limit there when it comes to the Power Automate discussion. All right, so let's move on. Let's briefly talk about the low code, no code, pro code discussion, and I hit on it a little bit before, but we'll dive a little bit deeper into it. The no code, in my opinion, is things like the business rules and Power Automate, which I just described. When we get to low code, once again, these are my opinions, but I think they're kind of meet with the industry standards. Low code would be things like Power FX, and we start seeing Power FX in Power Automate. So when we have more advanced logic in Power Automate, case statements and if-then type of statements, and getting kind of heavier into logic, that's where Power FX comes into play. And then we can also have dynamic values out of a Power App, or really from Dataverse. But we access or reference a Dataverse instance, and then we can pull fields and data out of that and reference that in Power FX. Another a low code thing is Power BI, another part of Power Platform. But Power BI can be a little bit more than just no code. You usually need a data expert, maybe a data scientist, to help with Power BI. You can do some simple things with Power BI if you're good with SQL queries and fetch XML and things like that. But if we're going to get deeper into it, sometimes we need those data experts. But we can also build some pretty simple visuals in there, which is low code, using Power BI, and then we can embed those Power BI visuals into a Power App. And then the last thing for low code is the JavaScript. So when business rules don't allow us to do what we need to do, which happens quite a bit actually, because business rules are nice and they work well, but there's certain things you want to do that they won't allow us to do. So then we can go in and we can write a few snippets of JavaScript that are driven off of on-load events or on-change events in your Power Apps. When a field changes, then we want something to happen, or we want to display a certain form or a tab in your form based on a value or a scenario, then we can do that with JavaScript. And then if we move on to that pro code side, now we're talking about .NET or C# plugins. And, just complete transparency, that's where I kind of leave I understand the pro code side. I understand the .NET plugins, but I don't normally write those myself. I'm not the most efficient person and have the most knowledge there. So usually I bring in a pro developer that does that on a daily basis, can do it very quickly and efficiently and knows what they're doing. And I can describe, from an architect standpoint, what I'm looking for and what the desired outcome is. But then let them go to work in creating that. And that can be a lot of different things. Usually that's maybe outside of the Power Platform a little bit. Maybe we're calling to an outside database, or we're accessing an API from another system that we're wanting to use. And so that's where we're getting into some of that pro code and some of that .NET or C# that we're going to use in plugins. All right. So, I forgot I had this slide as well. I thought we were getting ready for the demo already, but this might be actually one of the most important slides that I show you. This is the release planner. And when we get out of this presentation, I'll go over to the release planner real fast and show it to you. But it's very powerful. It's if you're not using it already, and I think a lot of people already are aware of it, but if you aren't, you should be using the release planner to check out the next releases and what's about to come out with Power Platform and with Dynamics. If you're a Dynamics person, you may have heard of this little thing that Microsoft is talking about, Copilot. That's kind of a joke, obviously, because that's all they really talk about anymore. But it's powerful. There's a reason why they were talking about it. We can build apps with natural language. We can do basically natural language for everything, which is the direction they're going. We can build apps. We can build Power Automate flows. And you just kind of describe to Copilot what you want to have happen. And then it figures out from your natural language what that means in coding and configuration and things to make that happen. A couple other things that are coming out pretty soon, if they're not out already. I think they were coming out with the next release was the Microsoft Fluent Design. So Microsoft has updated kind of the design of model-driven apps to be more like their other apps. The word I'm looking for is kind of eluding me now, but so everything in Microsoft World has the same look and feel. So they've redesigned some of the model-driven apps, or not some, all of them, to have that same Fluent design. And then model-driven apps also, I made mention of the release that's recently happened. So most of in the release planner relates to semi-annual releases that we have a release 1 and we have a release 2 every year, but they made a change to model-driven apps, and they're going to have a monthly channel of releases for model-driven apps, which is sort of exciting because now we can get updates more regularly. We may not get as many each month, but each month we will get new things with model-driven apps. Okay. All right. So here we go. Now we're on to the demo. So let's check out my developer Power Platform instance. I'm also going to hit on a couple of websites before we get there, but let's go there now. Right. I got a few minutes here. Hopefully you can see my screen changes. So first I was going to hit on my blog site real fast just to show you where it is. And it's 365thoughts.com. It's my blog. A lot of different information about me, articles, and a link in the videos to my YouTube channel. So this is cool if you want to get more information. I have written a couple blogs about what I'm speaking about right now. So that's good. And then right over here. So this is my developer instance, and this is what I'm about to show as my demo. But before we go into that, this is the release planner. So if you're not aware of this, once again, very extremely good information. You should be looking at this if you're not already. It's the releaseplans.microsoft.com. Out here, you can see that we can get into information about Dynamics and the release plans for sales and all these other items. But then we also have Power Platform. So we can look at Power Apps updates, Power Pages, Power Automate, AI Builder, the Copilot Studio, all this good stuff. And so this is where I get all of my information. Well, probably not all of it, but a big part of it. And it's where you can stay on top of what's coming, when you should be able to expect that it's going to be available. So a lot of these are going to be available this October. So I'll stop. I'll get off my soapbox on this, but if it's not apparent yet, you should be out here, and I'm a big fan of this. All right. So let's get into the Maker Portal and talk about the app that I created as our example here. So you can get a developer instance of the Maker Portal, which is what I'm in. I'm in my developer instance, and basically they just kind of give you a free instance that has less functionality than a paid for instance, but is very good for what I'm going to use it for and what you might want to use it for, as well as you're learning and kind of building things to test out and try out different concepts. But if you have a company instance of Power Platform, then it may be just as valuable to use that. But I'm using a developer instance. In here, we have access, over here to tables, which is the data and the different flows that I might build, and then different solutions that you build out so that you can transfer things from different environments to other environments. So if you build it in a developer environment, then you can move it to test and to production using solutions. Here in the middle, we have several different ways that we can build a new app. So we can start with data. So we know we have tables that we've created in the Dataverse, and we can build an app from that data. We can start with just a page design. We have a design of how we want our page to look, and we can build an app off of that. So there's a lot of cool screen capture type of, you almost draw it out on paper, take a picture of it, and then think, cool, software like Figma and some other things can read what you drew and make sense of that and try to build your standard application from there. Obviously, you're going to have to make some changes and tweaks and things, but it's kind of a cool thing to be able to start from. We can start from an app template. So these are templates that Microsoft or maybe even third parties have created to give you a head start on different scenarios that people have found that they know that they want, they know other people are going to want to build apps based on. So you can just start from that template. And then I left kind of the, maybe the best for last, or the newest for last, I guess is probably the way to say it, is up here. This is the Copilot area. So we can build an app based on Copilot suggestions of tracking sales leads and list inventory and manage inspections. Or you can just start with your natural language, which, as I mentioned before, just start typing out what you want to do in your app, and Copilot will hopefully, and they do a very good job of making sense of your natural language and building a template to start from. Once again, it's not perfect, and sometimes you have to maybe restate what you're asking for to really get it. And certainly you're going to have to tweak it after it builds the template for you, but it's a great starting place. It builds that first draft of your app, and then you can go in and make those tweaks and those updates and make it look pretty or whatever else you might want to do. But it's really cool that that's the direction that Copilot is going. All right, so I created this 365 Thoughts app in the past, and that's the one we're going to use now to look at. Let's look at it first, and then I'm going to come back and we can talk about maybe editing and a few other things in the app. But what I built was this app, and I built this for the last time I gave this presentation, which was back in March for the Canadian Summit. So we have some Canadian Summit theming in this app. But I went through and used the out of the box, tables, entities for accounts, contacts, and activities, which I mentioned before. So we have those available, and I'm using them. And then I built a custom table for Canadian foods. So this is an app that's kind of intended for reviewing and giving your opinions on different foods that are popular in Canada. Before I go through that, just a real quick overview of how a model-driven app works, if some people are not familiar, is we have this sidebar over here is really the main navigation, and it can be huge. It can go way down the screen, and you can scroll down if you need to. This one is very simple, and I haven't gotten very complex in my example here. But we have our home tab, which in this case goes to accounts. We can go down and see all the recent history of the different pages that I've been to in this application. So you can go back to there very quickly. If you click on one of these, it'll take you back to that location. You can also pin things. So you can see that the icon next to Canadian food, Canadian nachos changes. And now it's pinned, or I can unpin it, pin it. And what that means then is down here, if I go to the pinned items, now anything that I've pinned will be here, and I can quickly not lose that item. And really, the scenario that makes the most sense here is in an application that's much larger than the one I've built. It might be hard to find that item again because it's so large and maybe buried, several levels down. Well, you can pin it, and you can always get back to those items very quickly, and things that you're going to use multiple times or over and over again. All right, so with accounts, let's drill down into this. Well, let me back up for a second. This is a view in a model-driven app. So these are all over the place. These are the main views that people use for just viewing lists of records. So this one is the My Active Accounts view. So My, usually in a model-driven app, means these are the records that I own as a user. So I'm logged in as my user, and these are the accounts that I own in the system. And they're also active accounts. So these are my active accounts. We get a list of them, and we can define these views by the different columns. And for this view, we only chose to show 5 columns, but we could choose to use more or less. And we can filter by or sort by the different columns that we have available here. If I drill down into an individual account, now we can see data for that one account. And once again, all of this is in the Dataverse, and all of this is customizable. So we, in the view that we're just in, we can change the columns. Here in this form for the account, we can change the fields and create new fields and change the order and the layout and all of these things in this form very easily. And hopefully I won't run out of time, and I can show you a little bit of that editing capability here in a few minutes. But this is the form for the account. And one of the important things here also that I want to point out is we have the ability to have, this is out of the box functionality, once again, which I love, much like business rules and, some of the other things, is the ability to have business process flows. Generally, these are areas to either direct a sales process that you want to go from this process to the next to the next. In this case, it's for an account, and it's telling us for basic information, what do we really want to focus on gathering? We have all these other fields that are available, but what's the most important? For an account, which is a company, we want to make sure that we have a primary contact, and we want to make sure that we gather the phone number and the website. And then we can go to the next stage, and the next stage is address. And what are the most important things we want to gather for address? Well, these are the most important, and they're in the business process flow right up top for people to use very quickly and kind of guide people to what the business thinks is the most important. And there's a lot of more information that we can gather, but these are the items that we definitely want to gather. And then we also have details. So these are the detailed information that we want to gather as well. All right. So that's an account. A contact is I'm not going to spend much time on this, but looks much the same way, where this is the detailed information for an individual person. So in this case, Jim Glenn, this is his personal information, where he works, or what, at least what account he's associated with, his email, phone number, and all those other things. Over here in the timeline, which I didn't hit on at the account level, but this is, you can see a timeline pretty much in any record you go to. And this is just going to show you the history of what's happened for this record. And so there was a phone call that was created for Jim's contact, and there's also an email. And these are showing in the timeline. And so, and we can see a complete history of all the transactions that's happened for whatever record that we're in the Dataverse inside of this Power App. And then we have activities, and I want like appointments and emails and phone calls and tasks. And a lot of times when I'm building these out, and I haven't done it yet, as you can see, I'll eliminate the ones that I don't think we're going to use. So, in general, I would get rid of things like fax and letter, because a lot of people aren't tracking that sort of information or maybe even using it anymore in a modern system like this. So I would remove that and kind of remove some of the extra stuff and really simplify it down to what we need in our app. So let's talk about then kind of the whole point of this is the custom part of what I created, which is the Canadian foods. So that once again, this is how we can look at and give our opinions on different Canadian foods that are out there. For the Canadian nachos, I've wanted to show several different field types. So the critic's name is a lookup field to our contacts. So I've done a lookup to Jim's contact record. We have a pick list or an option set list here of different food types. So we have maple syrup, we have back bacon, we have poutine, we have a Canadian, not Canadian, Hawaiian pizza, which is kind of strangely, the Canadians came up with the concept of Hawaiian pizza, and a couple of others. We have just a regular text field, which we can put in the name of the food. So I've chosen to name our poutine as the Canadian nachos. We can put in the food price, which is a number field, but also a currency field. So I put in that it was $12.50. And then I have a calculated field. And this calculated field, after a value is up here, will do a 10% of, or actually 110%. So we get 100% of the value up here plus 10 for basically taxes or whatever you want to do. I just wanted to show the example of a calculated field. This Wikipedia URL, I'm using a business rule based on the food types pick list. So if I change this to maple syrup, then we get the maple syrup Wikipedia link. If we choose back bacon, then we get the back bacon Wikipedia link. And so I've done that through, once again, business rules. When the business rule sees this value and food type change, it gives us the corresponding URL link that I've programmed in there, or customized in there. We have just a standard kind of whole number field for spice level, but also I've done things in here where I've limited it to the values of 1 through 10. So if I put in 12, it'll give us a warning that, hey, we only accept spice levels of 1 through 10. And it won't allow those values that are outside that range. We have a yes, no field here is, will we try this food again? And I've gone the extra level here of using a component, a nice little toggle switch. This could be just a yes, no, a little bit uglier yes, no field, but I've chosen to use the component that gives us the toggle of yes, no. And then this field down below is just a nice big text field that we can put anything we want to, but I've labeled it identifiable ingredients. So for poutine, normally that's a combination of fries, French fries, gravy, and cheese curds. And I've listed that down below. All right. So a couple things. One other thing I wanted to show was I also have a business rule for Hawaiian pizza, where when Hawaiian pizza is chosen, there is an alert that says, you're not Hawaiian and that's nasty. And it won't allow Hawaiian pizza to actually be chosen because of that alert that comes up. I just thought that was kind of a funny thing, because I found out that Hawaiian pizza was developed by, or came up with the concept by, Canadians, and it didn't really make sense to me. So I included that in the example. And one last thing, well, not really one last thing, but I'll also show how we can get out to this URL for, you can come over here to the globe, hit that, and it'll launch that URL and take you to that Wikipedia site. All right. So that is all of that. Let's see. I might have a couple minutes left here. In just a couple minutes, I'm going to show the editing of that Power App that I just showed. This is the Maker Portal editor. So I went into that Power App. I hit the edit kind of pencil, and it took me out here to the section where I can edit it. And in here, I can see the different pages that are made up by the Power App. I can go in and I can see the data and any automation, which I haven't done yet, but I could see the Power Automate flows that I've associated with this app if I wanted to. And I can come in here like to the Canadian Foods form that I was just showing. I can hit the pencil again, and this will allow me to then go in and make changes to that form. These are all the field tables or the table columns that have not been used on the form, and I could choose to add those, and I could remove some from over here and reorganize if I wanted to. And then if I go into the different fields or different columns, I can click on food types, come over here to edit the table column, and I can see that this pick list or this option set has these values of maple syrup, and I could add additional ones if I wanted to, or remove them from this editor. Yeah, running out of time a little bit. I think I'm about at the end, but that was a quick overview of how you can get into the Maker Portal and start editing, and also the editor is how you can build out from the beginning a model-driven app. Let's go back to here real fast and end on right here. I guess I won't use I'll just keep it simple. Use this kind of a little bit uglier, but I am Scott Roller. This was a session on model-driven apps are cool. Hopefully I proved it to you. Feel free to reach out to me, send me an email, or reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter. And check out my blog. I got more information out there, and I'm going to be publishing more things as time goes by on different other topics that I think are valuable. That's it.
Thank you so much, Scott. So it was interesting for me, and I hope it's interested actually topic for our attendees here. So I'm not seeing any comment and the question here in the comment chat. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining us today. So we will have actually I'm going to host the next session next Saturday with another great topic, and hopefully to see you all again. Thank you so much, Scott, and thank you everyone. And
thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.